Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, Text 8. Kim Baleshu, Nu Baleshu Shurena Kalina Dira Viruna Apramata Pramateshu Ya Vikrika Nishu Vartate Kim nu baleshu shurena Kalina tira bhiruna Apramata pramateshu Yo vriko nishu vartate Kim nu baleshu shurena Kalina tira bhiruna Apramata pramateshu Yo vriko nishu vartate Kim nu baleshu shurena Kalina tira bhiruna Apramata pramateshu Yo vriko nishu vartate
Kim nu baleshu shurena Kalina tira bhiruna Apramata pramateshu Yo vriko nishu vartate
Kim nu baleshu shurena Kalina tira bhiruna Apramata pramateshu Yo vriko nishu vartate
Kim nu baleshu surena Kalina dhira varuna Apramata pramateshu Yo vriko nishu vartate
Kim nu baleshu shurena Kalina dhira bhiruna Apramata pramateshu Yo vriko nishu vartate
Kim nu baleshu shurena Kalina dhira bhiruna Apramata pramateshu Yo vriko nishu vartate
Kim nu baleshu shurena Kalina dhira bhiruna Apramata pramateshu Yo vriko nishu vartate
Kim nu baleshu shurena Kalina thira bhiruna Apramata pramateshu Yo vriko nishu vartate
Kim nu baleshu surena Kalina Dira Biranu
Kalina Dhira Biruna
Apramata Pramatesu
Apramata Pramateshu
Yovriko Nishu Vartate
Yovriku Nishuvartate
Imnu Bale Shushurena
Innuvale Shushurena
Kalina Dira Birnuna
Kalina Dhira Biruna
Apramata Pramateshu
Apramata Pramateshu
Yovriko Nirshuvartate
Yovriku Nishuvartate Kim what? Nu maybe Baleshu among the less intelligent persons Shurena by the powerful Kalina by the personality of Kali Dira self-controlled Biruna by one who is afraid of Apramata one who is careful Pramateshu among the careless Yaha one who Vrikaha tiger Nishu among men Vartate exists. Translation: Maharaj Parikshit considered that less intelligent men might find the personality of Kali to be very powerful, but that those who are self-controlled would have nothing to fear. The king was powerful like a tiger and took care for the foolish, careless persons. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Those who are not devotees of the Lord are careless and unintelligent. Unless one is thoroughly intelligent, one cannot be a devotee of the Lord. Those who are not devotees of the Lord fall prey to the actions of Kali. It will not be possible to bring about a saner condition in society unless we are prepared to accept the modes of action adopted by Maharaj Parikshit, i.e., propagation of the devotional service of the Lord to the common man. Maharaj, would you like to speak on this verse?
The system of Varnashram is enacted by Lord Krishna so that everyone in any occupation, any level, can gradually be raised up to the platform of pure devotional service. It may take many lifetimes through the system. But there's also a fast route that one can immediately take to devotional service. But for those who are not able to do that, they can go step by step from the mode of ignorance as a Shudra, work as a Shudra, and by doing that, being humble, taking a humble position and working under the guidance of the three higher castes, they make advancement. And so in the next life, they can also be elevated to a higher status. However, the process of devotional service also incorporates Varnashram, but with the difference that everything is offered to Krishna directly. The Karma Mimamsa philosophers, their idea is that the work ethic, that if you just work and do your work, then that's everything. God's obliged to satisfy. If there's God, it doesn't make any difference whether there's God or not. Good work, the work ethic. And we have people like this, many people. In fact, many in America believe that if you just do good work, Good work means I pay my taxes, I work as a doctor or a lawyer or a businessman, I pay my employees, I deliver goods to the public, I do my job well, that's it. I don't have to do anything more than that. I raise my family. So the problem here is it's a good ethic in one sense, because not working or being lazy is the lowest mode of ignorance, not doing one's duty. And then one can be engaged in sinful activities, because bad association is quite prevalent in the Kali Yuga. As we've been hearing, Maharaj Parikshit was so vigilant, he wouldn't allow Kali. He didn't have to worry about Kali. Kali couldn't find any place in his kingdom. He had to leave. But today, Kali's kingdom, Kali has taken over. And everyone is influenced by this influence of sinful activities, disregarding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's why when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was speaking with Ramananda Roy was very learned, and Lord Chaitanya acted as though he was the student, and he asked questions. And he began by saying, what's the method, what's the goal of life and the method to achieve it? And Ramananda Roy began by saying, Varnashram system is method to perform one's duty in the Varnashram. And Lord Chaitanya said, that's okay, but that's external. Can you give something more? And they went on discussing giving up one's duty and taking sannyas. Lord Chaitanya said, can you speak something more? And as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, if you cannot love me, then perform the activities of Bhakti Yoga, and gradually you'll come to that level. If you cannot do Bhakti Yoga, work for me. And he says, think of me and study scriptures. These are all very good methods to gradually elevate oneself. Then they went on to describe the higher levels of love of Godhead as being the ultimate goal. That needs to be established, that at least amongst the Brahminicals of people, those who are very intelligent, can understand that God is a person, and at the same time, he has his impersonal feature. This is very difficult. It's not possible for one who's in the mode of ignorance and passion to understand that. They say, how can you be at once a person and be impersonal also? And this is the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Chintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. The Lord is at once inconceivably, simultaneously one and different from all the living entities and from actually everything, because everything is an emanation of him. So this knowledge needs to be taught on the highest level. as the highest level, the Brahmins, become educated, then automatically the whole society will be raised. Therefore, Brahminical culture is so important. And transcendental knowledge, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, there's nothing so pure and sublime in this world as transcendental knowledge. So transcendental knowledge culminates Vedaisya sarvarahame vavejo vedanta vid veda vedevachaham. Culminates in Krishna, knowing Krishna and surrendering to Krishna is the ultimate in knowledge of Vedanta. The impersonalists think, as we heard last night, most people think, who are a little familiar with Vedic or Eastern thought, they think that the goal is to merge. The Atma becomes merged with the Paramatma. And then we become one. And then if you ask, well, what do you do then? Just you don't have any miseries, just exist. They don't know what they do. Because it's a fallacious proposal. How can a living entity, who by nature is a part and parcel, how can he become equal with the whole? The drop of water from the ocean has the same qualities as the entire ocean, but it can never equal the ocean in quantity. Therefore, they're not one. And even if you take qualitatively, they're also different. You cannot say they're the same. The molecules that make up the drop of water are different than the molecules making up all the other drops of water. So there's no oneness like that. Everything's different. But there is oneness to some extent in that we have the same characteristics as though in smaller scale. This transcendental knowledge is what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching in his philosophy. And this is how he defeated the greatest Mayavadis, the greatest impersonalists of his time. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was considered the greatest impersonalist. And he was converted by Lord Chaitanya's teaching. And the sannyasis, what's his name? Prakashananda, thank you. Prakashananda Saraswati. He was the leader of thousands of sannyasis and impersonalists. And they were very strict. They only studied Vedanta, no singing, no dancing. You find this in several countries, several cultures of the world, religious cultures. They believe that to sing and dance, play instruments is totally against religious principle. That you should try to be. They have some idea that you're supposed to be void of emotions and happiness, and so they were like that. They were criticizing Lord Chaitanya for his process, for his activities. But when he began to explain the fallacies of the Shankara philosophy of monism, then they also agreed that there's no real substance. He says that it's Vedic, but there's no proof, there's no evidence. That's the Vedic conclusion that he comes up with, that this living entity becomes the Paramatma. So Lord Chaitanya defeated them and they all became devotees. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became a devotee. And the sannyasi all the sannyasis became devotees, chanting Hare Krishna. So the devotees have philosophy. They're not just sentimentalists. When people see devotees chanting and dancing, they think they may be sentimentalists. They don't have anything to do. They don't know anything. But actually the highest philosophy is given in Vaishnava philosophy because the Vedanta Sutra was commented on by Shankaracharya in his Shariraka, but he gave totally wrong meanings. His interpretation was exactly opposite of what Vedavyas, who is the author of the Vedanta Sutra, he gave his commentary already under the order of his spiritual master Narad Muni. He gave the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra. It's like the beginning of Vedanta Sutra, Janmadhyasya Taha. Everything comes from that supreme person. And he says who that person is. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He's the son of Vasudeva. Vasudevaya also may mean all-pervasive. He's also pervasive, but at the same time, he's the son of Vasudeva. And Bhagavatam begins also, Janma Jasya Yataha, Hitonvayadi Taratas Chartes Vavigyasvar. Here's a whole explanation that source, what is that source? That source is Abhigya. He's fully aware, or he knows everything, directly and indirectly. And anyway, the Bhagavatam continues in 12 cantos to describe and to comment on the Vedanta Sutra so that no one can misunderstand that Krishna is that, he's the source from which everything comes. Then the nice thing about Vaishnava philosophy is that it includes the impersonal. It gives a personal, very satisfactory answer. What about the energy? The energy, the white light, the Brahman, that's the energy of the Supreme. And so is God personal, or is it the absolute truth? That's one of his aspects. Vedanti tattva vidas tattvam yad jnanam advayam prameti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdate. Three aspects to the absolute truth: the impersonal, the localized Paramatma, super soul, and ultimately Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, and his personal expansions, such as Baladev and Sankarshan, Pradyumna, etc. Rama, Nrsimha, Varaha, all that. This is complete knowledge. Only having this complete knowledge will bring one real peace, real bliss. Otherwise, he can experience to some extent the eternality and knowledge aspect of the absolute truth, but not the blissful. Because that requires personal interaction. So the job that we have, the devotees have, is to try to practice Krishna consciousness. Because without practicing, especially without chanting, it's not possible to understand this these high philosophical things. And if one chants Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, then Vidyavaru Jivanam, he'll get transcendental knowledge automatically. He'll be able to understand how Krishna can at once be everything and then he's outside of everything. How his Avyaktamurtina, how his unmanifest form is existing. It sounds contradictory, unmanifest and form, yes. Because he solves all apparent contradictions. He's everywhere, but then again, he's far away, but he's very near as well. He has no hands, but he can accept everything that's offered to him. He has no legs, but he can overcome all others running. These are apparent contradictions which the impersonalists take. They like the Upanishads because of these enigmatic descriptions. They like it because then they can come up with an impersonal conclusion. Therefore, it must be something beyond anything that we can imagine, anything we've seen or perceived, and that something could only be unlimitedly impersonal. Because as soon as you bring in persons, they say, then you've minimized his energy. You've tried to localize it. And you brought in matter. Anything that can be described, they think is matter. So Brahman is so great, but greater. One devotee was saying, he was speaking to someone, and they were saying how Brahman is great, so we can't limit him. And so the devotee said, yes. But imagine if the absolute truth is unimaginable and not restricted. But imagine if there were a person who had that feature but was more than that. Wouldn't that be even greater? And the person had to say, yes. So that's the Param Brahman. Greater than the Brahman is the Param Brahman, supreme greatest as a person. We're fortunate to have this philosophy and to be able to live a life that's favorable to that. It goes along with, our philosophy goes along with the lifestyle. Whereas the impersonalists, why are they doing anything? Who are they talking to if it's all one? Why are they speaking? What is their need for speaking? What is their need for doing anything? Just exist. And who are you anyway? They say, Aham Brahmasmi. And we're all everything's God. So contradictory. How can God become overwhelmed by ignorance and by Maya illusion? So this is what is being described here, that if we have this knowledge in society and a system based on Varnashram, Daidi Varnashram is offering everything to Krishna from one's occupation. Perform your occupation for Krishna's benefit. Serve Krishna by the fruits of your occupation. Then you make spiritual advancement and it becomes devotional service. That Varnashram, which may be in the beginning, this work ethic, becomes actually to your benefit. But if you keep the results for yourself and try to enjoy them, thinking you're the body and your family's their bodies, and that's the way you'll be happy, then the whole thing is ruined. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Yes, Bhakti Gio.
I was just wondering, in what stage of bhakti do we start depending on Krishna's mercy instead of our own intelligence?
Well, when we're performing devotional service, the whole goal of it is to be completely dependent on Krishna's mercy. We serve him, and like Maharaj was saying, we give whatever the fruits are of the work that we're doing, we give that to Krishna. But the whole time our consciousness is focused on the fact that I'm only able to do this service because Krishna is enabling me to do it. And so whatever the result is, I'll give that to him. So as far as what stage, from the very beginning, we'd want to pray to Krishna and try to realize how we actually are fully dependent on his mercy. Because without Krishna's mercy, we're not really able to do anything. Whatever activity we'll do, even if it's the most simple thing, can become the hardest task ever without Krishna's mercy. But I remember reading, if one remembers Lord Chaitanya, then even the most difficult task becomes very easy. So we're always dependent on Krishna's mercy. Yes, Murari Prabhu?
I wanted to ask about this Varnashrama. There are many rules, and for us, like for beginners, it's very difficult to actually understand what is the principle and what is the rule, and make the distinction what is actually good for us to take, like from Varnashrama, for our spiritual progress.
Maharaj, did you want to speak on this?
Yes. Just as we take an automobile and the devotee uses it for serving Krishna, not for sense gratification. So similarly, the occupation, the varna and the ashram. Varna means his maintaining the body, taking care of those types of things. His occupation in society. So the difference between the varnashram system is that it defines the characteristics of those divisions. For example, one who's a Shudra, a bricklayer, it's fine, he's doing his work either way. But then there's the ashram. Then he has to be in one of the ashrams also. Okay, he's a bricklayer. So there's no difference in the varnashram, but there is, because he's in ashram. He's in the grihastha ashram. Even Shudras have one of the ashrams. They're just grihastha. They just become married. That's the only yajna that they have to perform. They don't go for brahmachari training. They don't take vanaprastha, and they don't take sannyas. But they remain householders, and they do their duty, and they live by the scriptures. They don't eat meat. And if they're very much attached to eating meat, then there's this allowance for that, very limited. they can eat meat under certain conditions, but not from the slaughterhouse. So that keeps them out, and they're not supposed to take intoxication. So in this way, they live their life happily, performing their duties. They have their wife, they have their children. They don't own very much. Shudras they're not supposed to own very much, because as soon as they get a lot of money, they'll go and they'll be tempted by illicit sex, gambling, meat eating, intoxication. So they're just giving their maintenance, and they're happy with that. Enough to eat, they have their job. You see many people, they want to get a job. I want to work so that I can take care of my family, and that's good. If Krishna is added, if you add Krishna, then it becomes perfect. A bricklayer working for a devotee of Krishna as a bricklayer is perfectly situated. You can go back to Godhead. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that even if one is low-born or Shudra or even lower than Shudra, if he's engaged in devotional service, then he can achieve the highest perfection. So we take, if there's some activities, there were some occupations that are not suitable, then he shouldn't take those. For example, he works at a slaughterhouse. You say, well, he's a shooter, but he shouldn't do that. That shouldn't be allowed. The culture, Vedic culture wouldn't allow that. So he follows the real Brahmins, the real Kshatriyas, the real Vaishyas. They'll guide him into what is performable activity and what is not. But nowadays, no Brahmins, no Kshatriyas, no Vaishyas, no guidance. You can get anything from the internet you want, the lowest of the low, and that's quite accessible to everyone, even children. So this is corrupting everything. Everything is getting corrupted. So, but Varnashram has its value because it defines the roles very nicely. And the positions are given the respect and the responsibility they know. For example, teacher, Prabhupada always said, Brahminical, but the teacher has to live the life of a Brahmin. He has to have the characteristics of a Brahmin. He's clean, he's peaceful, self-controlled, he's austere, he's learned. How can he be a teacher and have uncontrolled senses? He's not a Brahmin, and he's not a teacher. So he has to get a different occupation. You're not a Brahmin, you can't be employed. So that, in other words, if someone he came to become a teacher, they should ask, and how do you live? What is your lifestyle? They don't ask, they just say, do you know what's on page 42? And that's it. So then everything gets contaminated that way.
I have one more question about, you mentioned about this Ramananda Rai, that Lord Chaitanya was speaking with him, and I was thinking that there was also some another person, this Prataparudra Maharaj, and it seems like from one point like contradictory that he met with Ramananda Rai, but he doesn't want to meet Lord Chaitanya with Prataparudra because he was like a wealthy person. So
If you can say something about this.
Well, Ramananda Roy was not a king. He was a governor. He was like a small king, you could say, working under Prataparudra. The Lord Chaitanya is not restricted by any rules and regulations, but he accepts them when they're applicable. So in the case, he had to set the example that sannyasi should not associate with worldly minded persons, and kings are always thinking of worldly things. Pounds, shillings, women and money and protection. And so he wanted to set the example that sannyasis should not be after being sponsored by kings and given all kinds of opulence. Chanakya Pandit also was a Brahmin, and he was instructing the king, but he wouldn't take a salary. He would live in a little hut just outside. He wouldn't stay even in the kingdom because he didn't want to be corrupted. He wanted to be able to do his duty perfectly as a Brahmin, as a sannyasi. If a sannyasi becomes dependent upon householders, he's ruined, because then he'll give up his principles. That's why the rules for sannyasis shouldn't stay in one place, in a householder's place, for more than 3 days. Otherwise they start to become lazy, and they put a burden on the householders. So Lord Chaitanya was establishing that principle with Prataparudra. But he also established that Prataparudra was a great devotee, and Lord Chaitanya did see him, but it had to be done in a very kind of mysterious, transcendentally interesting way. You know the story. He had to. Prataparudra was advised by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and the other devotees. They said, Lord Chaitanya wants to see you. He knows you're a great devotee, but because you're a king, he can't openly see you. So, but if you change your dress, and so he put on the dress of a sannyasi, of a Vaishnava, and when Lord Chaitanya was resting after the dancing from the Rath Yatra, he came to rest in the garden, and they told Lord Chaitanya, they told Prataparudra, the king, you just be here dressed like a Vaishnava, and you can give him a massage on his legs, and you can. So then he recited the Bhagavatam about the gopis, and Lord Chaitanya was so pleased that he embraced him and he gave all benedictions to the king. So it can be done in different ways. That's what makes Lord Chaitanya's pastimes so delightful, is they're done in not the ordinary, not the way you would expect.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Krishna was diamond.